Inside Protestantism, there's this really powerful idea you hear all the time, this concept of a single, unified faith. But what if that unity is, well, more of a myth than a reality? Today, we're going to dig into an argument from our source material that really challenges that whole notion.
And here it is. This is the statement right at the heart of it all. It sounds so simple, right? So compelling. If we all share the Bible and a belief in Jesus, all the other stuff is just minor details. I mean, on the surface, that seems like a pretty solid foundation for unity.
But here's where it gets complicated. The source material we're looking at argues that these so-called details, they aren't minor disagreements at all. Nope, they're foundational contradictions. We're talking about deep fractures that challenge the entire idea of a single unified Protestant faith.
Okay, so the first major conflict the source points to is a huge one: salvation. I mean, you'd think if there's one thing everyone could agree on, it would be how a person is saved. But as we're about to see, it is far from settled.
The source lays out two paths that, honestly, couldn't be more different. On one side, you have the view that salvation comes from faith alone. Just your belief is enough. But on the other side, the belief is that faith is totally meaningless without good works to back it up. These aren't just slightly different takes, they are completely separate ideas about the very core of what it means to be a Christian.
So where does this faith alone idea come from? Well, proponents, like Lutherans and Calvinists, they'll often point you right to this verse in the book of Romans. And you can see why. It seems crystal clear. You're justified by faith apart from works. Case closed, right?
Well, not so fast. The source material asks us to look a little closer. It points out that the full verse actually specifies works of the law. And the argument is that by dropping those three little words, you completely change the meaning. It's a subtle shift, but it's absolutely crucial for that faith alone doctrine.
And this is where things get really wild, because here is the direct contradiction. Other groups, like Anabaptists and Methodists, they'll point you to the book of James, which seems to say the exact opposite. It says a person is justified by works and, get this, explicitly not by faith alone.
And here's the kicker. According to the source, the only time the precise phrase faith alone appears anywhere in the Bible, it comes right after the word not. So you've got this direct scriptural clash right at the heart of salvation.
Okay, so this leads us right into the second major conflict: baptism. If there's this much disagreement on how you're saved, what about the very act that's supposed to signal you've joined the faith? You'd think this would be settled territory, for sure.
But it's not. Not even close. The source lays out three totally different, competing views. You've got Presbyterians who baptize infants because they see it as a sacred covenant. Then you've got Baptists who completely reject that, saying only an adult believer can be baptized. And then you have groups like the Quakers who basically say the whole ritual is just symbolic and not really essential at all.
And this, according to the source, is why this is such a big deal. This isn't just about different preferences for a ceremony. This is a fundamental fight over who is in and who is out of the faith. We're talking about a debate over the actual boundaries of the community, and each side is using the Bible to justify their own, mutually exclusive view.
So if you can't agree on salvation or who's even in the club, that leads directly to the third conflict. Who leads? Who actually has the ultimate authority to teach, to set the rules, and to decide what is true?
And you guessed it, we see another deep split. The source shows us three competing models. You've got the formal hierarchy of bishops, like in the Anglican Church. Then there's congregational rule, which you see in Baptist churches, where the power is with the members themselves. And finally, you have charismatic leadership, like in Pentecostal churches, where a pastor's authority comes from their perceived direct connection to God. So the crucial takeaway here is that this isn't just about org charts. The leadership structure dictates, well, everything. It decides what's taught from the pulpit, who gets the final say on what the Bible really means, and even how people worship on Sunday. It's another one of those so-called details that the source argues is actually everything.
So after walking through these massive disagreements on salvation, on baptism, and on leadership, the source brings us all the way back to that initial claim of unity. And now that foundation is starting to look a whole lot more fractured.
And the conclusion from the source material is pretty stark. That simple, catchy mantra of Bible plus Jesus, it's not really a unifying principle. It's more like a mirage, a convenient slogan that papers over these deep historical contradictions that just won't go away.
To really hammer this point home, the source uses this powerful analogy. Imagine a group of people all looking at the same object up in the sky. One person looks up and asks, "Is it a bird?"
But another person, looking at that very same object, asks, is it a plane? See, the point is simple. Everyone is looking at the same thing, but they absolutely cannot agree on what it is.
And here is the punchline. The source argues that the Protestant approach then becomes this. Hey, what the object actually is, that doesn't matter. What matters is that everyone believes in it. Faith in the thing itself becomes way more important than agreeing on what the thing even is.
And so we're left with this final, really provocative question from the source material. If the Bible is supposed to be the one true guide, but it's being used to point in completely opposite directions on salvation, community, and leadership, then where exactly does the journey end?